What's up, guys? Ronin here. I talked previously about a couple things. One was the Gillette ad, and I'm going to go deeper into what that ad brought up for me. And a long time ago, one of my earlier episodes, I talked about the difference between Asian macho and Western macho. And I've never, well, I shouldn't say never, but since I've lived in Asia, I've never really resonated with the idea, the concept of macho in the West. And I think that it's an attempt, which is good. It's good to try things and try to find out what's going on, right? Try to find a solution. I think it's an attempt to find out what are men good for? Like what is our value to society? And like what is our, to know what we bring to the world, we have to know both our positives and negatives, right? We have to understand ourselves. We have to see ourselves. And that is not an easy thing. And I think that the discussion of what are men, what value do men bring in the world, it's a very good time for this, because if you look at that Gillette ad, the men in that ad my feeling is they're just like these cutout figures. They're not really bringing anything. There's no personality to any of these guys in the ad. There's no personality. There's no, if you look at an ad with women, often there'll be like a spunky kind of like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of spunky attitude where even though it's a short ad, there's only a few seconds, still there's personality expressed. There's value expressed, differentiation. Their individual characteristics are expressed. In that ad, the guys are almost like robotic. And they're also obviously being chastised for things. And there's so much to that ad, and there's so much to this discussion, I don't even really know where to start. But I'm going to try. Okay, so the value of men. I think that why do we need to talk about this? We need to talk about this because I don't think people understand. I don't think that we've really spent any time thinking about what we bring to the world. Like, what do men bring to the world? Very simple. Do they bring anything? If you look at the Gillette ad and you look at a lot of kind of memes or television shows or movies today, men just bring bad things. That's kind of I would say that is the underlying assumption to a lot of media, is that men basically need to be controlled, and men are violent and dangerous and toxic masculinity. That is the whole discussion. So, and then guys will say, guys will respond back, we're not toxic, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't even start to, I think we need like a calm, level-headed, loving look at what men bring to the world. And if men don't bring anything at the end of the discussion, that's fine too. I'm not looking in any of my stuff. I'm not looking to purport some kind of like idea that I have or opinion that I have. I'm always looking for what's real, like what happens in the world. Like, I'm ready to accept anything in my life, and I want to overcome any difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to go there, no matter what. If it's embarrassing, you've heard a lot of my podcasts where I'm talking about very personal stuff that is not flattering to myself, right? I'm willing to go there because that's the only way I can improve. There's no other way. The way you improve is there's two ways, right? One is you see your blind spots and your weaknesses and you improve those. And then also you take your strengths, you understand them, and you distill them, and then you capitalize on those and you bring those. So it's bringing up the bad and also maximizing the good, or taking it to the next level. So what do men bring to the world? It's a good question. We've heard a lot in the last few decades about what women bring to the world, and I would have to say that what do women now? Of course, we're not talking about we're talking about the good side of women. What do women bring? Women bring nurturing. Like the traditional, what do you call it? I can't even think of it. I'm looking for the word here. Sorry, I don't have it. But basically, women bring some kind of, like to children, for example, there's a bond between a mother and infant that the father just can't have. It just doesn't exist. It's never going to happen. And so it would be easy to say, looking at the infant and the mother, it's very easy to say. And I think a lot of guys and a lot of people in society will say this, actually. A lot of people actually believe that fathers don't bring anything to children. And now the studies, if you look at the studies of children raised by single mothers, is they have higher drug abuse rates, they have lower education. There's a lot of data now that exists. But why is that true? What do men bring, right? What is the difference? Because if you don't understand this, it's very easy just to assume that there's kind of like nothing valuable. And I think some men do not understand their good points. And if you don't understand that, you will look outside yourself for answers. So you will look to society to tell you what benefit you bring, or and also what negatives. And what we're hearing now is basically over and over and over again in millions of different ways that men, need to be controlled, need to be put in prison, need to be watched. And I want to take a very soft line on this, because I think this is so controversial and so important. I don't want to skew it in any way. I mean, I understand why women, and I think you should too, and there's a lot of women listening to podcasts now too. I can see why women do not naturally see the value in men. Actually, let's say fathers, for example. And let's use roughhousing. I think roughhousing is one of the best examples because it really is different. Okay, men and women, when it comes to roughhousing, women do not understand roughhousing. I'm not saying any women, because what can happen is there are women who understand roughhousing, but usually they're the ones who had many brothers and they've watched it. They don't understand it, but they understand there's something there. There's something magical that both men and women bring to the world. Really, there's no other word for it. There's something spiritual or magical. Okay, and roughhousing for men with children is one of those things. And I don't think it's been fully appreciated. In fact, I don't even think it's started to be appreciated. And I also want to give women a break too, because if you don't have any way to understand something, you just simply won't, right? You know what I mean? Like, you just don't see the benefit in it. Like guys, some guys will look at women putting on makeup or something and they'll say, that's just stupid. There's no point. That's whatever. But there's value, and men might never understand what the things that women do, the value that it brings to them, and they really don't have to understand that. All they have to understand is respect that there is value, and we are all complex organisms born with what we're born with. And if a lot of people are doing something, usually there's something there, right? And then to kind of look at it. It doesn't mean that it's something that you want to do. It's just a matter of understanding people better. It's always valuable to understand people. It gives you that kind of maybe you don't fully understand, but you understand it's important. That's all you have to. Some things you just need to understand they're important, right? Simple as that. To women, there's things that are important, and to men, there's things that are important, and to kids. So what is a man, and what does a man bring, let's say a father, bring to children? And I know, because I'm a very, and kids do differ and men do differ. So I'm going to go with some generalizations. So, forgive me. There's a bell curve. Okay, guys, there's a bell curve. Some men are on one side, some men are on the other, some men are in the middle. Okay, so we can't, not every man is going to be the same. And I don't expect anybody on this podcast to be exactly the same as me. I'll just tell you about, for roughhousing with myself, is I like roughhousing. I really like roughhousing. I always liked it. I liked it as a kid. When I would meet an adult who knew how to roughhouse, it was like magic. It was like literally like magic for me. I'm a very physical person. I think I have a high testosterone. Probably compared to average, I would say probably I'm on the higher side. I've never tested it, but I believe I'm on the higher side. If there is a curve on the bell curve, right? So, and I think that also influences roughhousing, right? So for example, when I'm around children, children tend to like me. I have a very positive feedback from children about my presence, which is interesting. And I didn't know that as a kid. I was very scared of kids when I was young. I literally did not understand them. I didn't grow up around kids. There was no kids in my neighborhood. There was, when I was very little, but as I got older, I was kind of like, my life was separated. Me and my brother and sister were similar ages. We hang out with similar ages, and we didn't hang out with, there was no infants around the house. There was no kids around the house once I was getting older. And so I remember, my friend Tom had 5 kids very quickly. Right after I was just getting out of high school, he was like 28, but he had 5 kids, and I went to his house, and one of the boys came up to me, and I was playing around roughhousing and this and that, and he goes, I kept calling him not by his name, and he said, "You don't even know my name." And I was so, I felt, I'm an empathic type person. So he said it so directly, I didn't know his name, right? I couldn't remember. There's 5 kids, right? And I would just go over there once in a while. I probably went in roughhouse twice with them, right? So I didn't know his name. And he was so direct to me, boom. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, right? I was like, I felt terrible. I was like, I don't know your, and then I just, what happened to me was, at that point, I was actually scared of kids because they were so direct. Like, they would just hit me with something. And I was just like, at that age, I didn't understand, right? I was 18. I didn't understand what to do. I didn't understand you could just talk to him, about things. You can talk to kids, You don't have to talk in goo goo gaga voice. You can actually just converse with kids. And that's the way I do it. That's the way I do it now. And so, but what happened to me was I got scared of kids, actually. And I was kind of avoided kids, essentially. Looking back, now these are like retrospect. I look back at my life, and when people would have kids, I would kind of I go see them and everything. But you know what I mean? There's part of me was kind of like, man, these kids are rough, man. They come up with stuff, and they see you, right? They say things, right? They'll say that he's fat, or whatever. They'll say, they'll just call things out, and that can be quite scary at times. And I think really, a lot of people are afraid of stuff like this, especially if you have faults, right? And then everybody's ignoring it, but the kids don't ignore it, right? That can be quite scary, right? And so for me, that was the thing. And I guess I didn't think about it much, but either way, as I got older, then when I moved to Japan, and I was teaching English when I first got to Japan. And so one day somebody said to me, do you want to teach kindergarten? And I was like, not really. I didn't feel like I had any skills to do that, literally. And I talked about this in one episode a little bit, but what happened was, it was a Thursday, right? And I was an independent contractor. I was teaching at high schools, colleges, and independent in my house. I had a little English school in my house, and I was in business. I was starting a business, and this was the best way to get a visa, by the way. It's the only way you can get a visa in Japan back then. So you had to be an English teacher, or you had to work for a multinational, or you had to be married to a Japanese. I would never get married for a visa, right? So I would never use a woman in that way, and I would never want to be tied to somebody. I would never want to debase my value as a person, which I believe, getting a visa through marriage, it does. I just couldn't do that. I'd rather get kicked out. You know what I mean? There's no way. That's my values. I would never, ever do that to a girl. I'd never do it to myself, right? And so, even though I was not into getting married. I mean, some people just got married on paper, essentially, right? They ended up being married for real, and it never worked the way they thought. But either way, I'm glad I never went that road. And it was very tempting because it was so difficult to get a visa. And I wanted to start a company, and I couldn't get a visa for that. So either way, I was teaching English to get that visa, right? But it turns out that it was quite a good experience for me, actually. I learned a lot about Japanese culture through teaching. And also I learned how to manage groups of people. And that was and also public speaking. I think it's helped. Ronin Man was my teaching. And I have a lot of lessons from that. And I actually want to do an episode on what I learned from teaching. Because it's so deep, actually, what I learned. Teaching was a super valuable time in my life. And so either way, I got this job on Thursdays because Thursdays were free for me and I didn't have anything to do. So, and I was making tons of money. I was making at the time I was, as an English teacher, I was making 700,000 yen a month, and most of it was untaxed, actually. So my tax was super low. And so I was living the good life. I was like styling. I was young. I was making, that's like $7,000 at the time, or actually it was more than 7,000 back then. It's probably like 8,000. And it was like basically no tax. And my apartment was like $530 a month, so I was like just banking cash, right? Sending cash back home. But Thursdays were free. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go do that class. So I went there and didn't really know what to do. I just kind of like, I didn't have any training with kids and I didn't have any experience with kids. And so I was just totally my natural self. Like I just didn't know what else to do. I had no other models. I never watched people with kids. You know what I mean? I just kind of went to school and they said, teach the kids basic things, right? Like numbers, counting, colors, stuff like that. So what I did was I started to create my own lessons, essentially. And I would just like, I would like say things like brown, and then the kids would run around and touch brown things, right? Blue, then touch blue things. And then I started like inventing. Now these I ended up studying to get a teacher's certificate. And I actually signed up I was actually enrolled in a master's program for teaching English as a second, what was it? TSP. I can't remember. Either way, I signed up for a master's degree and I dropped out because I realized it wasn't for me. And I got into business, but I really got into it. And I realized, like, when I studied teaching English, I realized that that the methods that I was using, some of them, not all of them, some of them I invented on my own. And I had never seen or heard anybody else using them. But a lot of the methods were, you could put a name on them, right? And so, but a lot of my stuff was very active. So I was moving the kids around because I knew that the other teachers would just have the kids sit still, right? They would just sit there and they would teach them stuff. And I thought, these kids have tons of energy. They can't sit still. So I was just like blue, brown, like they're running around, and then the kids were like laughing and stumbling over things. And the kids were having a great time and they loved my class. And so the school came to me and they said, would you mind staying later, because we'll pay you. It was a rich school, right? They had tons of money. They were training. It was a gymnastics school. They were teaching kids to be Olympic athletes. It was a really high-end school. And was trampoline was the main thing they were teaching. And that teacher was a ex-Japan, I think he was a gold medal or something. I think he got the gold medal, I believe, in trampoline in the Olympics. And so he was a really cool guy too. And we taught him, I ended up teaching him skiing. We went skiing everywhere. And I'm a good skier, so, that was cool. And I taught them everything, like all kinds of sports, right? Because I'm good at sports, right? So the kids, they loved me. But what happened was they said, well, we just want you to be around the kids more. And I was like, what do you mean, like teach something? They're like, no, just be around. The kids like you, just be around. And so they ended up paying me to be there at lunch. They paid me like a salary to be there at lunch. And then they paid me to be there for the afternoon. I had nothing to do. Like I had no responsibilities. They had never done this either. But the kids loved me. So they said, just keep them around, have them do something. So that's what I did. I kind of helped out. I kind of went to the gymnastics classes and I helped. And I also learned trampoline myself. And it was very enjoyable for me. But basically, long story short, what happened was I realized that I love kids. Like I get along with kids. They love me. It's like there's There's a bond that I cannot explain. And a woman just does not have that bond that I have with kids. It's a different thing. It's a different thing. She has something, okay? Women are valuable, guys. In case you guys don't know, women are essential. The world is a complex place. We offer value, right? One of the things is to understand, to get self-esteem, to improve your self-esteem, is to stop looking for validation from outside and to look within and find the value that you bring to the world. And then not to waver once you understand that. I think the Gillette ad is a perfect example where society is telling men how to behave, how to act, and they're essentially like, men are looking outside themselves for what to do. This is a tragedy. This is like the worst thing. It's really terrible. And it wouldn't matter if it was men or women. It doesn't matter. Human beings need to understand themselves. And they need to understand their the danger zones for them, and also the things that they can capitalize on, the things that they're good at. They need to understand their own value. You have value as a person, okay? No, regardless of what you do, you have value. And it's the same. My feeling, for example, about my daughter is that I love her, even though I'm not there right now. It's a long story. But I love her regardless of what she does in her life. There is nothing she could do to make me love her more. And there's nothing she could do, no mistake she could make that would make me love her less. Like, my love for her is the same, right? It's not conditional on her pleasing me or succeeding or anything. Like, my love for my daughter is exactly the same. There's no way to change it. And understanding that you have value in the world, you want to improve yourself, okay? You want to always be better. That's a lot of my podcasts are like how to, that might not make sense to some people because they're like, wait a second, you're always talking about how to improve yourself. Right, I am. But the foundation for your life has to be deeper than that. Of course you want to do better. You want to have things, right? You want to have nice cars. You want to have money. You want to have freedom. You want to have nice clothes or whatever clothes you want, right? You want to have whatever car you want. You want to do whatever it is that you want. You want to have a certain house or whatever. All this is good, but it's not the foundation of your self-esteem. Your self-esteem is much, much deeper than that. It's that you see yourself as something valuable. And part of that, I think that I would add something to discussion myself. I think it's important to look for what you bring. Like, there's one thing is just to say, oh, I'm valuable just because I am. In a lot of self-help, that's what they do now. It's like, I'm valuable, you are valuable, you are important. To me, that doesn't work. Okay, that doesn't work. I need to go deeper. I need to see, like, what do I bring? Who am I? And I need to know my faults. It's not enough. For me, it's not enough just to say, I'm valuable. Now, I understand, like a lot of people, that's what they do. And that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But for me, I need to understand. And that's why I'm making this podcast now. And I actually did a lot of research this morning on this. And I was thinking, like, what value do men really bring? Like, not this knee-jerk reaction that, oh yeah, men provide value, like, of course, like, we're so valuable. No, what do we do? Like, what is different about us, right? What the fuck do we bring to the world, right? Simple, right? So let's talk about roughhousing, and I'm going to use this as an example today. So roughhousing is something that women do not understand. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but basically don't expect women to understand things they don't understand. Because women have value in themselves. They bring value to the world. They don't always understand what other people bring, but they might just accept it. They might just say, okay, I don't understand. This is the best you can. When it's something you can't understand, there's certain things men don't understand about women, and they never will. There's things about women you will not understand, guys. But you just have to say, okay, I don't understand it, but I know it's important, right? Because you can see it on people's faces. You can see it in their lives, and you can see it in kind of the magic they bring into the world, right? It's kind of like it's things you don't understand that you look at science. Okay, before we understood gravity and the movement of the planets and all that stuff, what did we do? We thought of things as good and bad. Okay, so before we really understand something, we just put a good and bad label on things, right? Dying is bad, living is good, right? And I would say when you don't understand something, that is a good place to start. Is just to say, I don't understand this thing. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works. But like watching a woman with an infant, there's something good happening. You know what I mean? There's some kind of fucking bond there. Like, what the fuck, right? I don't quite get it, I might never get it, but I appreciate it. I see it, and I appreciate it, right? And men are really misunderstood, I believe. And it's so easy to misunderstand men. And I think men don't really have such a deep understanding of themselves. And if you don't understand yourself, how can you appreciate what you are? How can you defend yourself in your own mind? And it's one thing, like, I don't think men are very good at just saying, hey, I'm valuable, I'm good. That's not enough for men. We need to know why. Why am I good? What is good about me? I bet you that there's a lot of men, okay, who watch the Gillette ad who think it's true. Secretly. Even guys in MGTOW. Because beliefs are subconscious. You are trained when you're a kid, or they go into your mind and they become your belief system. I talked about your belief system. It's not logical, okay? And changing it is not logical either. So there could be men who even lead the men's movement who believe that men don't add any value. That is possible. It's a subconscious belief, okay? The way that you change the subconscious belief, there's many ways. And I talked about that a little bit before, and we're going to talk about more because these are important things, guys. Life is not all logical. That's an important thing to know. Your subconscious is not logical. And you could have a belief inside yourself that you don't really provide any value in the world, or that men are dangerous and not good. This could easily be a value of yours. And it's not that you created this value or that you wanted this belief or value. It was either implanted in you from somebody else. And that gets down to very specific things, okay? When you want to change that, you got to go back into your history and find out who implanted that in your mind. What words did they use? What circumstances did they say that? And you need to go back to that time and look at it with an adult view. That's how you change the deepest leaves. You have to remember, you have to find out where they came from. And when you see where they came from, it could be like somebody in your past who told you something and you remember like the exact situation. You remember the words they used. And when you see them and when you go back to that, it allows you to take your knowledge and your wisdom as an adult and to look at it a different way. And this will help your subconscious to, I don't know what you call it. It's almost like it's like rocks being melted or something, or an earthquake destabilizing something, or metal being melted into liquid or something. It's a very fundamental, important thing, and it's not logical. It's like emotional, or it's emotional is the best word I can use. A lot of guys will say, I actually read a comment recently, is Ronin has become emotional. It's like, yeah, we have emotions, guys. You can say you don't have them. You fucking got them, right? They're part of the fucking human experience. A lot of life is logic and emotion. Emotion is something that you need to understand in order to have a better life. You need to understand your own illogical mind. Your mind is not a computer. It is not a Intel chip. We evolved from single-celled organisms, and understanding ourselves is not that easy. The skills we have, why we do things, how we operate, fuck, man, when you get into this stuff, you realize how illogical the whole thing is and how poorly, what do you call it? I mean, we're absolute miracles, right? In one sense. In another sense, we could be improved, right? Like if our knees were more like horses' knees, we wouldn't have knee problems. Horses' knees are fucking awesome. They're way better designed than human knees. Human knees are like a shit show, right? They're a shit show ready to get busted up. Horse knees, man, if we could get horse knees, we would be so happy. We'd be playing football all the fucking time. Okay, so what? Let me go back here. I'm getting a little bit off target here. So let's just go back to the scene in the Gillette ad where the two boys are on the ground, and I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think they're doing in that. Are they fighting or are they roughhousing? Which one? What's the difference? Fighting and roughhousing. 99% of what kids do is roughhousing, and 1% is actually fighting. Fighting is, if you look at kids, if you can see the difference between roughhousing and fighting, and this is always the fear of women, is that, fighting is not good. Violence is not good. Getting injured is not good. And guys, you need to understand women from their perspective. This makes perfect logical sense. Their job with the kid is this nurturing, emotionally connective role. So naturally, they don't really get this kind of stuff. Like this is pretty out of their minds. Their, what do you call it? It's like they can't even imagine it. It's completely out of, I can't think of the word, but it's out of their reality basically, and it should be. That's the thing, guys. We bring different things to the world, and we don't have to understand all this stuff. Women don't have to understand what men naturally understand roughhousing as being a good thing. But I tell you, roughhousing, that's why the kids liked me at the school, is because I'm very physically active. And I was running around with the kids, and they were piling on top of me, and we were having fun, and we were learning, and we were active, and we were very physically, and we got a lot of energy out. And at the time, I couldn't really understand what was going on. But now that I think about it, I'm going to go through some of the advantages or some of the benefits of roughhousing. So roughhousing is, one, it's something, like I said, it's something that men do with kids. And it's a way for kids, it's to get kids to release aggression. Roughhousing teaches kids to set boundaries. So how to go too far. It's all about that. Like, how far are you going to go? How far is he going to go? And you kind of like, there's this give and take. It's a natural expression for people with a lot of personality, with strong, like a lot of energy, right? Like I was like that. I needed to roughhouse more than most kids. Like I love the rough uncles, man. They were great. But I'll tell you something and we're going to get into the very complex, subtle aspects of what is roughhousing, is that I knew the difference between a mean adult and somebody who was roughhousing. Even as a little boy, I knew there's a certain kind of adult. They act like they're roughhousing, but they're actually very mean. Do you remember anybody like that when you were a kid? If you know the difference, right? There's a big difference between somebody who's violent, angry, and somebody who's roughhousing. Okay, so it teaches you a lot of stuff, right? It's a tactile stimulation. So human beings need to touch people, right? Now, women touch the infant in a very loving way. Roughhousing is different. It's a different type of tactile stimulation, and it's also very important. Okay, so it's teaching kids their strength. And it's also like a way to kind of imagine things, right? They might imagine, a little boy might imagine he's Superman, right? Or he's all powerful, right? But he's testing his strength at the same time. So there's imagination going on, right? Roughhousing and men teach kids to explore aggression. Okay, you're exploring in here, but there's an emotional bond. There's an emotional bond. That's a big difference when roughhousing and fighting, is that you're exploring some kind of like almost like violence, right? But the other person has good intention. Your father, your uncle, who's roughhousing with you, he's not trying to hurt you, right? He's a big adult. and he's trying to, he's playing with you, and you sense that as a kid. You sense that, you feel it, you know? Like I remember teaching, I always roughhouse with kids and they love it. And I also taught my nieces how to climb trees, because my nieces were, actually two of them on one side, and one was very physical, the younger one, and the older one was not physical at all. So I didn't do much roughhousing with her because she was just not, it was not her personality. She was the type we would do, when I was hanging out with her, we would do like things that she wanted to do. Like basically, you know, she'd make food, you know, imaginary food for me, and I would eat the food, and we would explore, and we'd talk about things, you know, and we'd play games, you know. And she liked to do a lot of imagination games. So she was a princess. There was a game she made up called Poor Dogs. And it was Poor Dogs because her parents are very wealthy, and she was trying to process the difference between her and other kids. She was a wealthy kid, and she was trying to, looking back, I could see very clearly what she was doing. She was trying to understand, like, she somehow was starting to understand that she was different than other kids, and she made this Poor Dogs game up, and it was like some people were poor dogs, some people were not poor dogs, right? And it was her way of understanding things that were being thrown at her in the world. And it was very important for her to understand where she was and how she was and how she should act. Now, of course, she was very young. She was probably 7 years old or something, and she was just learning. And for me, it was all good. It was like, because I was the poor dog, right? I had no money, right? Now, of course, at the time I actually did have money, but it was nowhere near what she had and her family. So she was learning. You through games, you learn real things. Games are not games, guys. They are real. You are learning real skills in games. That's why we play games. And they always have rules. Roughhousing has a lot of rules, actually. One of the rules I already talked about, and that is the idea that at the heart of it, the person's not trying to hurt you. That is a very important difference. And I think when you look at people roughhousing, like in that Gillette ad, maybe he's roughhousing, maybe they're fighting. You guys can tell me. Either way, it doesn't matter. I didn't see anybody crying or screaming. That's what happens when you fight. Roughhousing can be pretty rough, right? It can be pretty, even for me, I can kind of like get a little nervous. Like, I wonder what's going on here. Are they roughhousing or are they fighting, right? Because you want to know the difference, right? It's very important if you're going to have kids around and you're going to roughhouse, you have to understand like that it can get out of hand and it can go to something else. And you have to understand that. And then you have to have your own boundaries. Like, boundaries are important, right? You can have different boundaries. Like, one of them can be like no fighting. That's a fair boundary. Right? I think there's still benefit in fighting also, but fighting is pretty serious stuff. I wouldn't want the kids to fight. I want them to roughhouse, and different kids are going to roughhouse different levels, but it also, another way to set boundaries, besides no fighting, is to say, okay, roughhousing in this room and no roughhousing anywhere else. So you can set locations. You can say, move things out so there's nothing to really get hurt with. I remember one time I was roughhousing with my brother, and I threw him, and we were living in a trailer park in Arizona, and it was really small, right? It was a single wide trailer. And I threw my brother, and we were very young. I was probably in second grade, and he hit his head on the corner of the coffee table, which was very sharp. And we had to go to the doctor and get stitches. So he was actually injured during roughhousing. And that's the only time I can really remember anybody ever getting injured roughhousing. And afterwards, I had a lot of angst about that because I don't know who it was. I was too young to remember, but somebody said that I was mean, and then I wasn't sure. Maybe I was mean. You know what I mean? Like, we can be mean, right? Humans can be angry. We can be mean. We can be vindictive. These are all human traits. We all have all these. Women can be mean, vindictive, and angry also. I don't think I was this time, though. I think I was trying to throw him. Like, it was something I had seen somebody throw somebody or something, like wrestling or something, and I was trying to throw him. And the coffee table was right there. I definitely didn't want to throw his head into the coffee table. That's for sure. And I didn't mean to do it. And that's a big difference in roughhousing too. is as an adult who is roughhousing with kids, you have to understand the difference between somebody who does something on purpose and something on accident, because that's a big difference. And the kids know this stuff, but they need to get reinforced, and you get reinforced through stuff like this. It's like you have to say, like, did he mean to do it, right? That's a key thing. Or was it an accident? Big difference. Big difference. Another thing that is that roughhousing does, and men bring to children, for example, is it establishes a hierarchy. Now, hierarchies are not in fashion, and everybody will say that the world is flat and there's no hierarchies, and this is patriarchy and all this stuff. But that's really total hogwash if you look at human interaction. Actually, humans always develop hierarchy. It's just a natural thing. Either physical hierarchy or hierarchy of money or hierarchy of whatever it is. It's just a natural thing. And every group, in fact, when boys meet, that's when roughhousing is most common, when they're new friends. They don't know. The hierarchy has not been established yet. So the boys wrestle and stuff, and then afterwards, they kind of establish their little hierarchy, like one boy's this, one boy's that. And this is a natural thing. This is what dogs do. It's what humans do. Girls do it. Everybody does it. And roughhousing is a way that boys establish this. Is where do they stand in the scope of things, right? Roughhousing, kids after roughhousing are relaxed. They feel connected and happy. So that's the benefit. Is afterwards, you can see it in kids' faces. They're like happy, right? It's a very good way for men to bond. And I'm not talking like a little bond. I'm talking a deep and lasting bond with children. And it's something that children don't forget. It's something that is special. It's something that's special. This is for women. I really want you to know that this is something that guys do. There's so many things that always, today we always say that women are basically magic and special and bring so much to the world. And like I said, I believe that we are all like that. We provide these kind of things that people don't understand. The only word we have is special and good and bad because we don't really get them. But they're deep and they're meaningful. And men, the bond that we get from roughhousing, there's a reason for it. And I'm going to get a little bit into the reason here. I'll attempt it, right? I can't say I fully have it down, but I'm going to attempt it. So it's basically the children that learn to roughhouse or have a man around, they become more successful statistically. There's been a lot of research on this in the world, and it's a way for them. It's like socializing. Roughhousing is socializing. It's a form of socializing, and it's establishing bonds. Like I said, hierarchies, and establishing your own personal abilities, the length of your body and strength and what you need to work on. But there's much, much more important stuff, actually, that roughhousing does. It helps kids fathers in general are more worried about their kids' financial security. Females will tend to say, oh, you want to study art? That's great. You should really do what you want. Now, again, I'm not saying it's bad. You can be a very successful artist. There's nothing wrong with studying art. There's nothing wrong with being an artist, and that's great. My mom's an artist. You can make tons of money. You can rent art. You can sell art. There's nothing wrong with it. But men tend to go with the numbers, right? And they say, like, not that many people become Mick Jagger. Not that many people become Andy Warhol. So men will tend to say, nah, the odds are low on that. So we don't want you to do that, right? So they worry about the financial security, right? Now, this roughhousing, what it does is it prepares children to compete within society. And that's what that is what fathers bring. Is there's a competition, okay? And it really matters if a father is how the father roughhouses. This is if you have kids or kids are around you, or if you're a mother listening, or just you're interested in children and children development and the way the world works, you'd be quite interested in this. It's very important that the father roughhousing establishes boundaries, right? It has a love, is showing love inside this physical play, right? They have to know that. And you have to know that that's what you're doing. You're not disciplining the kid, right? I remember adults that would squeeze my hand really hard because they're angry at me. I knew it. And I was like, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? He's fucking evil. I'm a little kid. I knew that, you know? But he was using roughhousing as a way to go over the line because he was not in control of his emotions, right? That's like the worst. That is like so pathetic. If an adult can't even control his emotions and he like, you know what I mean? Like kids know this shit. I knew right away he was like a loser, you know what I mean? But the key thing is when you're roughhousing with kids, you have to be dominant, but you can't win every time. So they've done a lot of studies on roughhousing, and it's important. You don't want kids that roughhouse or types of roughhousing. I would say that what this is that if you let the kid win every time, which some people do, it's very bad for the child. It creates basically a kind of a, what do you call it? Like a entitled child who thinks they're the best, right? It's important for the parent to win whatever the battle is more than 50%. So you want them to, what you're doing is you're teaching them how to have grit and stamina. So they're working towards something. So that's what I'm always thinking with them. I want it to be challenging for them to beat me, right? It's not easy. They have to be smart. And so I'm teaching them as I roughhouse. They're trying something. Let's say we're wrestling, right? Now they tried something and they grab my leg. Now say they do the same thing over and over and over again. The first time they do it creatively, I might actually fall down and let them win. But the second time, no. No. Second time, not going to happen. Because now I want them to learn something else. You know, I want them to figure out something new. I want them to use their tenacity to struggle, to improve themselves, and to see their weakness. So I might grab them in a way that I see that they're weak, and then do, you know, they win the game, right? And then they have to improve that weakness they have, and also they have to look for ways to attack, right? So this is absolutely essential. Studies say, like what I've read recently, is that intelligence is largely passed on by the mother to the child. Whether that's true or not, probably true. Who cares? Again, it's not, we have the penis type attitude here on this channel. We want to get to the heart of it. So let's just take that for granted. Let's say that by and large, the female determines the intelligence. I mean, obviously, males determine so many things like the sex of the child. So there is no better or worse. But let's just say that. But the intelligence of somebody, the basic intelligence, and the whatever developed intelligence of an adult are two totally different things. This, what I'm talking about here, teaches children, obviously, socialization skills, which you would generally, most people would assume that mothers teach socialization, and that's not true. It's this type of thing. This is what teaches kids how to get along in groups. It teaches them to challenge themselves and to fix their broken parts or their weak parts, because you're exploiting them, right, for a reason. Not to make them feel bad. You're exploiting them so they see, oh, you know, like if you're playing tennis, you know, like for example, you're always hitting to the front side because the kid is good at front side, but you want to hit it to the back side so that he can get a backhand, right? Otherwise, he's never going to develop it. He's going to go front hand, and he's like so good at front hand, but he can't win a game for his life because everybody quickly realizes the dude can't hit backhand, right? He's going to just get killed in any kind of match. So that's also what roughhousing is doing. That it's teaching kids to control their emotions. See, because it's frustrating when you're losing, you know, for a kid. For an adult, you're just playing around, right? You're teaching the kid physically. But for the kid, he takes it seriously, right? He's like, I lost, you know. He knows it's a joke. He knows it's a game. But at the same time, there's part of the kid's like, I fucking lost, you know. And so that teaches him to control his emotions. Because it's so deep. I mean, it's so fucking deep. Like, losing is not easy, right? Losing is hard. Improving yourself is hard. Tenacity is difficult. That's why yoga is difficult, because you got to keep pushing, and lifting weights is difficult, right? Running marathons is difficult because you have to like keep going at it, right? But what does it do? What does this teach the kids? It teaches the kid to form secure relationships with others. It gives them a social standing, and they become better parents through this, because they realize that you teach the kids through words, and you also teach the kids through actions, and you teach the kids through play. You're teaching the kid all the time, And it even when you roughhouse properly with a child, you're not just helping him, you're helping his kids too, because now you're training, you're showing, maybe not logically, but illogically, subconsciously, you're teaching him how to relate to other children. So when he has children, he will just naturally roughhouse with them, and he'll do exactly what you did. He'll be nice to the kid at the heart, even though he doesn't even know why he's doing it. And if he ever doesn't do that, he'll be like, "Oh, this is not right. This is wrong," right? But it gives even the grandkids a leg up, right? They get a sense of, another thing the kids get from dads is a sense of achievement. Women are by and large not achievement oriented. And then this is obviously very debatable. Women do very well in the workplace today and do well in school. But at the heart, I think this is something that the men teach the children more than the females. It's not one or the other, but they learn when they defeat a powerful adult. And I remember when, like, adults would let me win in roughhousing or in a game, and I kind of knew they could have beaten me, but somehow I was okay with it, because I realized, like, they made it hard enough for me that it was a challenge. And I you know what I mean? Like, I was doing better than I had been, right? So it was like I knew that there was something, like, it was something good, right? It was like, even though I didn't really beat the adult, I was like, you know what? That's, for my size as a little kid, that's valuable. And I did it, man. I fucking did it. Like, he rewarded me by letting me win because I was kicking ass, right? And I knew, that would be very powerful with other kids, right? Because they're not adults, right? So I had this sense of achievement, even though I kind of knew he was letting me win, kind of. Now, adults that let me win too much, I didn't respect that. That would make, I didn't want to play anymore, even, because it wasn't fair. Like, I was going to win no matter what. Fuck that, right? I'm not going to learn anything. It's not fun. The fun is that it's challenging, and it teaches me appropriate ways to respond to aggression. And kids that don't have roughhousing tend to be, according to research, they imagine threats where none exist, and they have inappropriate responses to aggression. So they might, if you do one small thing to them, they might go totally crazy. You know what I mean? Like, they might push somebody out of a car, or, like, injure somebody seriously, because they don't have that ability. Roughhousing, the exact opposite of what you would think as far as violence, it teaches kids measured violence in controlling their body and knowing where the limits are, and also knowing that a lot of physical stuff actually has love or caring. That you can be taught through physical things. You can be taught things. It's like amazing. Like, it's one thing to be taught like a logical thing, but you can be taught through physical things, right? And according to Anthony Pellegrini, who's a psychologist, is the amount of roughhousing kids do is a better indicator of achievement in first grade than even kindergarten test scores. So, I mean, that's serious. Like, roughhousing, like, helps your grades. It's fun. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, it teaches kids that failure is a temporary thing, right? You don't lose every time, right? And then you're not going to make the kid lose every time, right? It's temporary. And he has to, he's got to get his shit together, right? He's got to get it resilience and grit, right? It develops, and here's something that a lot of people don't realize. Even though intelligence might come from the female side. This type of roughhousing, it develops intelligence. So it's one thing to have something, so you have like an arm, right? But to develop your arm into a muscular, strong, flexible arm with good tendons, powerful, strong tendons, that's a different thing. What we're doing now is we're working the kids out, essentially. At the same time, we're doing something they really like. Kids really like roughhousing, right? But we're teaching them to be resilient, to bounce back. And also, it helps. The reason why it helps in grades, with kids' grades in school, is because they see it. Your resilience and your tenacity and grit. This is what helps you learn. Nobody goes to class the first day and is a concert pianist, right? They need to reach deep down inside, and this is something that the man, the father, teaches children, and it's very, very important. It's all through this physical play, through these challenges they're going through, right? It teaches you to basically reach your full potential, have a happier life, right? And of course, things you should do when you're roughhousing: make sure or do your best that no one gets hurt. And a referee, a parent, an adult has to step in if it goes too far, because it can go too far, right? I think, this is my own personal viewpoint, is it should not be the woman, because you as a man need to be able to police yourself. Don't let it go too far, okay? Now, maybe as an uncle, it doesn't matter. You can play around as an uncle when you're younger. You can go too far, and then the parents can come in and say, oh, that's too much. But as a father, I think it's important. And it's very important that you can draw the line. And the reason is because otherwise you're in the middle of establishing a very deep, meaningful bond with your child. And you're teaching them very important things that basically the mother doesn't even really understand, like essentially, right? Just like I said, we don't understand some things that women do. It's like we don't really get it. We know it's good. We let them do it. Hey, they're doing their thing. That's good. They come back happier, all good. Same thing with this, right? So I think having a woman come in and step in every time is a very bad way to operate with roughhousing. As a father, you need to be able to understand when things have gone too far. Otherwise, it's always like your wife is going to come in and say, stop. And I just don't think that's good. I don't think women have the ability to really understand the difference. It can be very subtle, man. Very, very, very subtle. You know, like it might even be something simple as like you've done it too long. Like you have to go to church, right? You got to go to school. You got to get out of here. You know, they're closing, whatever. You know, there's a limit, right? You have to understand that. Now, of course, if the wife comes in and says, hey, we got to go, you forgot the time and you're having so much fun, you forgot, that's totally fine. I'm not, there's no hard and fast rules here. But what I mean is it's difficult for somebody who doesn't really understand roughhousing to know when it's gone too far. It is difficult. It is difficult. And part of, almost like a woman, if you're listening, you know, like part of it is just like sitting back and just kind of accepting that you don't really like this, but it's really important. You know, like sometimes that's the best you can do, especially if you're not a physical type of person and you're female and you're just not into roughhousing, you never were. It's very difficult to understand, man. I get it. And that's okay. That's fucking okay. You know, we are who we are, right? We understand what we understand, but the job is to let other people work their magic. And just to, you know, the best some women can do is just to realize that this is a good thing, you know, that it fulfills some important thing, and it's a bond, it's a learning. Maybe don't quite get it, but hey, kids that do it are healthier and do better in school, so fuck it, you know, like let them do it, you know, and then let him call it too. And then maybe later on come up to him and say, you know, I think at that point, I think it was gone too far. And for myself, I would be very open to listening to that because I'm not always right. You know what I mean? But I'd rather they don't do it right in front of the kid, because pretty important that you have, with this kind of stuff, you don't want, it's I don't know, it's just like not good. If somebody doesn't understand, there's no way they're going to, it's difficult. It's difficult. Basically the guy should do this, right? And now why do, by the way, no one should ever get hurt. That's the thing. You don't want, that can happen, right? You can throw something in the air and they hit their head on the lamp or something, you weren't paying attention or whatever. It can happen. I personally, as an adult, it's never happened. And I'm roughhouse pretty hard. I throw kids around, and they love it. And I've never, ever once missed a catch or hit a kid on the head or anything. Not that I can remember. I kind of amaze myself sometimes, because I roughhouse pretty rough with them. And the kids, almost the more the better. So that's the other thing too. You, as a man, you don't want your wife to come in and control it, and you also don't want the kid to do it too, because they can kind of misunderstand. They think you're too perfect. I remember my niece; she was so used to roughhousing with me. She just loved to roughhouse with me, my younger niece, and she thought I had. I mean, obviously, she was so little. She was 2 years old. She thought, obviously, it's so funny what kids think, but she thought I had eyes in the back of my head. She thought I could see her wherever she was. And I was standing there talking to my sister, and I was looking at her, and I just sensed something in my sister's eyes, something very instinctual. And I turned around in 100th of a second. I don't know what it was, thousandths of a second. And I caught my niece, who was going to really eat shit. What happened is she had been behind me, standing up on a tall, not even a desk, it was even taller, and she jumped because she knew that I always caught her, and she thought that I could see her from behind. She thought that even if I wasn't watching her, I could see her. So sometimes kids misunderstand things. So it's important for you as an adult, as a man, is to know that, take all these things in consideration. So you're playing around, you're setting boundaries, you're teaching them hierarchy, you're teaching them stuff, physical stuff, and also that they can get out of hand, they can lose track of things, and it's your job is to kind of like teach things. She was too young to even teach that lesson too, but I almost cried afterwards. I had such a bond with this kid. It was so deep, it was so fucking amazing. One of the most meaningful things in my life, actually, and it was just amazing. She thought I could see behind my head. So fucking weird. Fucking kids. Okay, let's see here. So why do boys like it more than girls? Hormones, man. Testosterone. Very simple. Why don't women understand it? Less testosterone. Women have testosterone, by the way, but they have less. Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. So what do we do? Oh, yeah. You're teaching. Another thing you're teaching when you roughhouse is you're teaching, for example, you can teach a child how to pet a dog, because often the child is too rough on the dog, just grabs him and too rough, and it's very easy to think the child is being mean or aggressive, but actually the child does not understand how to control their body yet, and they don't understand what you might touch the kid's nose very soft, and then he might grab your nose and twist it. And it might not be malicious. These are subtle things. He just doesn't quite understand it. He thinks, well, it feels good when he touches me, so my nose, so I'm going to touch his nose harder, That'll feel better, And so you're teaching these kind of things too, right? How to pet a dog, how to feel things, how to adjust your strength to the thing you're dealing with, right? Daughters, if you have a kid or you run a kid who is not so physical, they might like pillow fighting and getting tickled, tossed into the bed. All things like this are good. And these are a very soft form of roughhousing, but these are also good. Soft pillow fighting is awesome, right? Let's see. So when do kids need roughhousing? It starts when they're toddlers and basically goes until junior high school. Just think of it that way. There's going to be still some stuff in junior high school, but it's like elementary school, toddler, from toddler to elementary school is the main gist of it, right? How can you tell the difference between rough fighting and roughhousing? Is are they smiling? Are they crying and angry? If they're crying and angry, it's something else, So, the other thing is taking turns. Kids learn how to take turns to this. So, for example, you can watch kids and you can see if they're fighting are they taking turns? Is one kid always being attacked? Attack in the good sense, right? The kid's hiding behind the couch and then he jumps and attacks you, right? Is one kid always doing it? or is it both kids doing it? If you see two kids playing or a group playing, right? Roughhousing should be somewhat fair, where they're both doing it. They're both part of it, right? They're not trying to hurt each other, and they're let's see here. Next thing, okay. The other thing you could do, you could establish some kind of way of stopping. So, for example, you could have like a word like, apples or something, and then you say, if you say the word apples, then we'll stop. Because kids are different. And I learned that with my nieces. Like, they were so different. The one kid she just loved roughhousing, man. She could not have enough of it. I literally, the one that jumped behind my head, thought I had eyes on my head. That girl loved roughhousing, man. She loved it. She was like a monkey when I took her on the tree. Like, she was not afraid of heights. She was just physical, and I was like, I just loved that because I was the same way, right? So the other kid I had to kind of learn to be with. And so with her, it was more important to have like things like ways that she could stop it if it was too much. So give her something like a word apple. So she says apple, that means too much. Too much Uncle Paul. And then I was like, oh, okay. I couldn't quite understand it because to me it wasn't too much, but to her, she had her own way of looking at it. She loved it. She did like roughhousing, but it was softer. It was more pillow fighting. It was more like throwing into a down-filled bed and stuff like that, right? So let's see. So that's basically the idea of roughhousing. And I think when you look at roughhousing in the scope of things, in the larger, from a helicopter view, I think you'll see that this is the type of thing that men bring, let's say, to raising children, and also to the world. Men bring a sense of achievement, a tenacity, a grit, a not giving up, setting boundaries. And, everybody thinks that women do it, but actually men are what teach children how to be social. This play is very, very important. And kids that roughhouse in studies have more friends and are more socially adept. I'm very lucky because I was a super aggressive kid. I had a lot of energy, man. I was like testosterone city, right? I was over the top sometimes, man. I really was. I was a very high testosterone kid. And today and this is like one of the things that makes me so sad is that a kid like me would be given Ritalin for sure in today's schools. I was like problem kid. I got in trouble, got sent to the principal's office quite a bit, but that was the natural me. Like that was the way I was, and so I needed a lot of physical things. One of the things that really, really changed my life was soccer. I didn't like football that much actually, so I wasn't like violent. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I was going out and just violent. I never hurt animals or anything like that. But I had just so much energy that it came across as violence to some people. And what really helped me was soccer, because soccer, you didn't have to hit anybody. You didn't have to tackle anybody, but you had to run like a madman. And it was a very aggressive sport. It's a violent sport. You're kicking the ball like as hard as you can, right? And you're trying to win, and you're trying to score, and you're trying to beat people. And, you're trying to run faster than everybody else. And you're trying to outsmart them logically with the direction of the ball and passing. And you need skills like dribbling and balance, and, you need discipline. And also you need to be able to sacrifice your body. I was an all-star soccer player, and I would have to tackle people, and I had to score, right? I was a forward, right? So I had to score. I had to use my head. I hated heading the ball, by the way. Fuck, I hated hitting the ball. I never liked hitting the ball. God, I tried to avoid it at all costs. When I tried to head people, I often one time I knocked a guy out because in a regional match, I jumped up to head the ball and actually accidentally hit his head and not the ball because I was so bad at it. I hated it so much, but we had to win this game. It was a big championship thing, and AYSO regional championships, right? And so I jumped up and I actually hit his head, which I totally did not mean to do. I tried to hit the ball, but I didn't have good control of my head actually. And it knocked him out cold, and he was the star of the team. And I got a reputation in my school as a badass because of that, because we won the game, right? And I think I scored the goals too. But the truth is I didn't mean to do it at all. I didn't try to hurt the guy. I was just trying to get the ball. I was just really bad at heading, actually. I hated it. I didn't like it. Now I look at like head injuries and things like that from NFL players. I understand. Like I just didn't like using my head for stuff like that. It's not good. It's not physically good. Like I was in touch with my body on this one. But this soccer and this release of energy, baseball was not good because I didn't release enough energy. Football was too much standing around. And also, I wasn't violent. I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want to tackle people and take them out at the knees. I wanted to beat them, right? But I wanted to beat them in soccer. Like, soccer was perfect for me. And I really enjoyed soccer. And I enjoyed swimming a lot, too, and surfing and all that. But soccer was the thing, I think, that helped me not to be a juvenile delinquent, basically. Because I'd be done with soccer. I'd be so tired. Right? I'd be like, oh, and all my energy and testosterone all kind of beat out of me. So these are the things that men understand, men bring to the world, and you want to understand yourself and to understand the limits, right? I talked a lot about limits and things like that, right? So like learning your benefits, what you bring to the world, and then also learning where you need to control yourself. You need to put a cap on it sometimes, right? That's important. If you don't put a cap on it, somebody else will, right? If you don't put a cap on your behavior, a cop will, right? And if you don't, your wife will come in, your sister will come in, some woman will come in. And that's not the goal. The goal is, just like it's not your goal to come in when they're doing something, when the girls are doing something and you just order them about, tell them not to do too much. That's not your job. Like, they're doing their thing, maybe time, that's all, we got to go, that kind of thing. But they're doing their magic. They're doing their thing. And you have your magic. And a lot of a man's magic comes from his testosterone. It comes from his aggression. It comes from his knowledge and understanding of his body and how that relates to other people. It comes from his desire to achieve, right? To go to the moon. To go to the moon was 100% men. To go to Mars. Elon Musk. It's no coincidence that the rocket companies, Jeff Bezos, NASA, Elon Musk, all these guys developing space things are guys, right? It's that achievement. It's like, get there, do it, be first, big rocket. That's guys, that's what we do, right? That's part of what we bring to the world. We bring a lot of inventions. And a lot of guys in MGTOW will say, oh, guys invented everything. So, we are the best. Women don't have any meaning because we invented a lot of stuff. And it's true. Everything from indoor plumbing to, the science behind the building that I'm in right now, which is a tall building with a pool up on up on a high floor. The engineering that it took to get that thing was all men originally. But that doesn't mean that men have all the value. That's ridiculous, guys. That's totally ridiculous. We have different skills. And in order to be a mature man, you need to understand what you're good at, what you're not. And you need to have place in your mind for exceptions, because there are exceptional engineers that are female. There are fucking exceptional mathematicians that are female. And you're a total idiot if you don't understand that. Because genius comes in many forms. Many forms. And accepting and seeing that, you know what I mean? Like, if there's one woman, let's say in a rocket company, and she ends up being like, she's got skills, right? She's got her own mindset too, which is going to be a little different, which could be good actually for the business. To not recognize that and just say, oh, you're a female. It would be like her saying, you can't cook, you're a man. Something like that. It's like, what? I love cooking, And so don't put the black and white things in your mind. Look at yourself honestly. Where are you on the bell curve? What do you provide to the world? What is your value? Don't let Gillette, don't let the media tell you who you are. Find out who you are. This is the foundation of your self-concept, your self-esteem. It's the very, very foundation of a man. You need to know who you are and what your skills are, what value you have, your weaknesses, and all this stuff. And when you see that, when you understand that, the value that you provide in the world will become, it's almost like uncovering the sun when a cloud moves away, you know, or when the sun comes up in the morning, the heat just naturally burns down. Your value is very high. You need to find that. Society does not understand men's value today. Don't get resentful about it. Fuck society. It doesn't even matter. I still agree. Don't buy any. I look for P&G on every product I buy now. I won't buy P&G if I can help it. I will buy P&G if there's no other options. So just like when I need surgery on my knee, I will do that. But it sucks. It hurts. It's not fun. There's recovery time. It's dangerous. That's the way I look at P&G products, and for the rest of my life, that's the way I'll be with P&G. I just don't believe that company went over the line to me. So it's not just Gillette. It's the whole company. I'm going to do I think I might do another episode on the revolution I have in my mind that this thing sparked off. But for now, we'll just leave it there. So I'm not out like looking for like apologies or understanding, or this is not so they can make a new ad. No. That was over the line. That's unforgivable. There's certain things that are just unforgivable. To see men as not having value, as being dangerous, no. Nope. And I actually feel the same way about women. If somebody doesn't see any value in women, they're dangerous, I don't have any time for that. Like, that's fucking bullshit. That's not true. We have value, and sometimes we just don't understand the other person's value, and it can be difficult to understand. Like I said, sometimes you'll never understand it, but you will know there's value, right? Just like sleep. You might not understand why you need it, but you just understand that when you sleep, you feel better, right? So that's the kind of thing. Just accepting that we're different. Both men and women are different, and also types of men. There's all types of men, right? There's that bell curve, right? There's that bell curve of women, right? Understanding the complexities of that in itself is, that's deep, man. It's deep. So either way, I believe today that I am a extremely fundamental person in the world. That what I offer, okay, is something that is very rare. And I understand myself better than I ever have. And I really encourage you to find, this is not just a bullshit podcast, okay? I'm serious. Find out what you provide. Your unique value to the world, not just as a man, but even deeper than that. What value do you provide? Why do you have value? What is your value? This will lead to many, many good things in your future. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Subscribe, and the channels, the World Summit's coming up February 2 to 4. People are signing up today, which is amazing. So get an airplane ticket and get on there. Come down, hang out with the crew, and let's have a good time. It's going to be fucking great. So either way, guys, hope you have a good day. And thanks for listening, and thanks for being part of this one, man. Fuck, man. This fucking Gillette thing just threw me for a loop, man. And got me to think about many deep things. So I might even have another one on this. Either way, thanks, guys.